Now, what year was that? Did the house get moved?
Well, that must have been 35.
Okay.
I was born in 24.
Okay.
And well, actually, when we moved in, I was in 5th grade. And we only had one toilet in the basement. My father had put that in when they moved the house up. And my mother and father, they took hoses in the house and took all the wallpaper and paint off, which was a big job.
Mm-hmm.
And then they had my Uncle Ben, my father's sister's husband, put in the kitchen, and it did a lot of the woodwork in the front 2 rooms. You remember those windows that went all the way to the floor? They were old-fashioned windows. And the dining room had a rail and everything.
It was very good.
Very pretty.
And the kitchen had all that, was that old pine?
Yeah, Uncle Ben put that in too, a knotty pine.
Knotty pine, yeah, it was a lovely kitchen.
And we lived there till my mother died. Somebody was there till my mother died in 76. But my father, during World War II, they needed places for people to live, not only for Fords, but other factories in the area.
Mm-hmm.
And also there were servicemen who needed homes near them. We had a couple of flyers that moved into the apartments. He put, by that time my brother was gone, and he fixed the little sewing room into a bedroom for me, and then he and my mother slept in the dining room and made the second living room their dining room.
Mm-hmm. Now, was Granddaddy Roe was not in World War I, or was he?
He went to Chicago.
He went to Chicago during the war.
The Navy.
Okay, so he was in the Navy during the war.
Uh-huh.
And doing shipbuilding?
No, he was. They were all the things that the servicemen needed.
I see.
All the Navy, you know, they shipped everything.
Yeah, the supplies.
Yeah, from the Navy Pier in Chicago.
I see. So that's what he was doing then. I misunderstood, sorry. And then, what did he do at the factory, at the Ford factory?
Oh, no, he was in what they called at that time the service department, but we would call it security now. You know, he was a very big man, and he couldn't hit anybody. He would be afraid to hurt him, you know, and he just had to say, you better go to work now, or you better do, and they did it.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody liked him, you know. He never had to hit anybody.
Was there, when the labor, wasn't there some unrest at the factory about unions while he was security?
Not at our factory. It was more in Detroit.
I see.
At the Rouge plant.
Mm-hmm. So he didn't have to mess with that?
No, but he was very pro-labor. He and my mother always voted. My mother always voted for the Democratic Party. He would take his time and vote for some people in the local areas who weren't Democratic.
But did he work? Was he very politically active?
No.
And then, but now Grandma Roe, how did they meet?
Oh, well, Elsie family lived across the street from my grandmother, my mother's mother, and so they knew each other from childhood on.
Oh, so they had been lifelong.
Yeah. Once I asked him if he hadn't married my mother, would he have married Aunt Ima? Aunt Ima. He said, good God, no. Although my Aunt Iona was a very pretty, sweet woman, but she wasn't my mother. You know?
Right. Now, how did they get along? Do you remember any stories about them that would be fun to know?
Oh, they always really cared for each other. My mother gardened, and you know, he'd have to, one year she'd want this plant on one place, and next year she'd want another. He'd always move it for her, you know. And no, they were very devoted to each other.
What did they like to do for social when he was well? What was their favorite thing to do?
Most of all their social life was with my mother's cousins and family, because my grandmother was one of 16, and she had all these cousins, and they liked to play cards. They played during the Depression. They played this poker, where you had to just put in $2 and you could play as long as you wanted on that $2. People don't understand how they bet. They just didn't bet, you know, after they lost it, but they were in the hand till the end. But
when Granddaddy was young, did your mom and he enjoy dancing at all, or did they?
No, they went to movies. They enjoyed movies, and my father really couldn't drink. You know, so they just didn't
go out that much.
Didn't go out that much. My father used to go to the boxing matches and the wrestling matches at the can't think of the right word, but they had them there, and he enjoyed that.
Let's see, now Granddaddy got sick when you were still living there, right?
Oh, yeah.
And what was the illness, and what was the circumstance?
When they got the veterans hospitals after World War II, and he was sick, he went to a veterans hospital, and they found he was diabetic. He also had his appendix taken out there. They took very good care of him, and he'd have to go to Dearborn for the first few years. But later, last year or so, he went to the one in Ann Arbor. They had built one in Ann Arbor at that time.
And now he had some other problem too, right?
Oh, yes, he had.
It was a growth on the pituitary gland?
Growth on the pituitary gland. And I can't think of the word, but his head was enlarged, his hands and feet were enlarged. And they couldn't do anything for that. But what he really had the most trouble with was arthritis, rheumatoid arthritis. And he suffered from that terribly, last.
And that was what he was in the wheelchair for?
Yeah, and then he had pneumonia when he died.
And part of why he got the apartments in that house and all that was because he already knew he was getting sick, and he wanted to have some...
He died when he was 60. He had to quit work when he was 50, and Mother went to work at the factory.
And she was working on the line, right?
Yeah, she just worked on the line. They said she could have a job at the office or in the factory, but she didn't want any. One of the neighbors worked in the office, and she didn't want all that office politics, you know.